If you look at a towering, glittering skyscraper in New York or London, you naturally assume the structural load is bearing down on this massive foundation of reinforced concrete, right?
Yeah.
Like planted directly beneath it.
Right, yeah. You expect local stability for a local structure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You certainly don't assume the entire load-bearing foundation is actually this fragile, invisible pane of glass located 10,000 miles away in Tokyo.
Yeah, but I mean, that intuition completely betrays us when we zoom out to the global macroeconomic level.
Oh, totally.
We assume the wealth we see right in front of us is self-contained, but the architecture of modern finance is, it's entirely counterintuitive.
It really is.
Yeah.
So, welcome everyone. Today is June 29th, 2026, and global markets are at an absolute boiling point right now. To understand the extreme volatility we're seeing today, we are doing a deep dive into a deeply intense 40-page financial manifesto, simply titled CASA JPY.
It is a dense read.
Super dense. But what makes this exploration truly fascinating, for you listening, is the context in which we received it. The user who supplied this terrifying forecast of a multi-trillion-dollar global market collapse actually attached their own internal automation script to it.
Yeah, that was wild.
Right. They commanded an AI processing tool to ingest this heavy macro analysis, extract the actionable survival protocols, and output a summary so they could literally shut their laptop and head out to a beach in Thailand.
Which is just a remarkable psychological contrast, if you think about it.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have a text detailing the complete structural demise of Western financial markets. And on the other, you have a reader refusing to engage with the stress of that apocalypse at all. Like, they're just automating their intellectual labor to go live their life.
Work smarter, not harder, right?
Exactly.
We are going to weave that user's automation protocol throughout our discussion today because it perfectly mirrors the actual survival strategy the author advocates. But our mission right now is to cut through the dense financial terminology of this manifesto, extract the actual physics of how global leverage works, and figure out what this extreme forecast means for your understanding of global wealth.
Right.
Now, a quick note before we tear into the mechanics. The author uses highly politically charged language.
Very much so.
Yeah. They refer to a global matrix they call institutional investors elite financial parasites. And they refer to regular retail crowds as NPCs.
Right, non-player characters.
Yeah. We are strictly acting as your guides to the architecture of this argument. We are decoding the financial machinery they describe. We are not taking sides, and we are certainly not endorsing the political worldview or validating those labels.
Yeah, that's crucial to state up front, because the underlying financial mechanics they detail are observable, and they're highly consequential, regardless of the sinister motives the author assigns them.
Okay, let's unpack this. To understand the prediction of a looming collapse, we first have to map out the invisible machinery that's currently holding the world up, right?
Right, and that machinery is the yen carry trade.
Which is the core engine of the author's entire thesis.
Exactly. For anyone who tracks global liquidity, the Bank of Japan's multi-decade battle against inflation is, well known.
Oh, yeah.
They kept interest rates near zero for ages, creating this massive, stagnant ocean of incredibly cheap money. The text refers to this specifically as Japanese current account savings account liquidity, or CASA JPY.
CASA JPY. Okay, so how does that translate to the rest of the world?
Well, think of this CASA JPY liquidity like a massive, incredibly slow-moving gear in Tokyo. Everyday Japanese savers and corporations just leave their surplus capital in checking accounts yielding, effectively 0%.
Which is crazy to think about right now.
Right. And Wall Street hedge funds and global prime brokers look at that stagnant pool and they just hook a high-speed, high-yield flywheel directly to it. They borrow this essentially zero-cost yen, they swap it in the foreign exchange markets for US dollars, and then they deploy those dollars into high-yield Western assets.
Right, they're pumping that cheap liquidity into US Treasuries, massive commercial real estate portfolios, and famously, the heavily inflated artificial intelligence tech sector.
Exactly.
The author actually uses a really striking metaphor to describe this dynamic, right? They contrast what they call the shiny roof with the paralyzed feet.
Yeah, that's a great visual, because mainstream financial media tends to look at the weak Japanese yen as if it were an isolated, localized weather event over Turkey.
Like it's just Japan's problem.
Right. But the text argues that the weak yen is not an accident at all. It is the shiny roof. It is a manufactured illusion that serves as a highly lucrative playground for New York's financial elite.
Because the weaker the yen stays, the cheaper their debt remains.
Exactly. But beneath that glittering roof are the paralyzed feet of Japan's physical reality.
Right, because Japan's structural reality is that they import, what, roughly 90% of their energy and food supply?
Yeah, 90%.
So it's like using your neighbor's zero-interest credit card to throw a massive, lavish party at your house, while your neighbor is literally starving and can't afford groceries because of the debt you're racking up in their name.
That is a perfect analogy. That's exactly it. When your currency is systematically debased to fund Wall Street's leverage, buying raw materials from the rest of the world becomes exponentially more expensive. It translates directly into imported hyperinflation for the domestic population.
So the regular people are just paying the price.
Yeah. The domestic purchasing power of the average Japanese citizen is just being decimated. Small to medium enterprises, the SMEs that form the absolute backbone of their economy, are being crushed under brutal logistical and overhead costs.
Wow.
So this slow-moving gear in Tokyo is basically grinding the local economy to dust just to keep the high-speed flywheel in New York spinning.
Which creates a massive structural dilemma for the Bank of Japan. I mean, you cannot simultaneously protect the artificially weak yen, which is Wall Street needs, and protect their domestic savers from hyperinflation. You can't do both.
No, you really can't.
So you might be wondering how long a system like that can hold together. And according to the source, the friction has finally reached the breaking point.
Right. The text highlights a highly specific, inescapable metric here. Japan has hit a persistent domestic inflation rate of 4.67%.
Wait, almost 5% for an economy that spent 30 years fighting deflation.
Yes, it is an absolute structural shock. Every day, Japanese retail savers and corporate entities are watching their capital evaporate in those zero-interest checking accounts.
Right, because inflation is eating it alive.
Exactly. So to survive the surging operational costs, they are finally forced to rotate that capital. They are pulling their stagnant money out of CASA and moving it into real defensive physical assets.
And that single shift alters the physical mechanics of global leverage.
It does. The silent zero-cost reservoir of the CASA JPY is drying up. And when international prime brokers suddenly have fewer yen deposits available to lend out to hedge funds, the cost to borrow that currency skyrockets.
So we start seeing severe, unbacked spikes in interbank borrowing benchmarks like LIBOR and TIBOR.
Yeah. The carry trade bridge begins to fracture. Wall Street's entire architecture relies on the uninterrupted ability to roll over short-term debt.
Right. They borrow cheap yen today to pay off the cheap yen they borrowed yesterday.
Exactly. But if that reservoir evaporates, they hit a brick wall. What's fascinating here is how the author likens it to the thermal mechanics of a massive engine.
Oh, right. The cooling fluid metaphor.
Yeah. If you cut off the cooling fluid supply to a hyper-leveraged engine, it does not slowly and gracefully power down. The machinery inevitably seizes up and melts down under its own thermal friction.
You cannot sustain a multi-trillion-dollar financial architecture in the West when the structural foundation in the East simply ceases to exist.
No, it's physically impossible.
But I'm kind of stuck on the math of this unwind, because it seems like a lethal trap. Like if these heavily leveraged institutional funds can no longer borrow cheap yen to roll over their debts, they're forced into what the text calls the margin call cascade.
Yes, the cascade.
To get the yen, they desperately need to settle their principal obligations. They have to liquidate their Western assets. So they dump sovereign bonds, real estate, and AI tech stocks for dollars. Then they take those dollars to the spot market to buy yen. But wait, wouldn't that massive sudden demand for the Japanese yen cause its value to surge?
Oh, absolutely. It creates an immediate, violent appreciation of the yen. And because their massive debts are denominated in that exact currency, a stronger yen makes their remaining debt exponentially more expensive to pay off.
Wow, so it is literally a mathematical death spiral. They sell U.S. assets to buy yen, which strengthens the yen, which increases their debt burden, which forces them to liquidate even more U.S. assets.
Yep, the feedback loop is instantaneous and it's brutal.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me, though. Normally, human intervention steps in here, right? If you look at the 2008 financial crisis or the liquidity freezes in 2020, central banks and regulators didn't just sit back and let a mathematical loop wipe out trillions in global wealth.
Right, they stepped in.
Yeah, they paused trading, they engineered bailouts, they injected emergency liquidity. So why does the author insist this cascade is an automated, unstoppable event? Like, why wouldn't they just stop it?
Well, the author points to a very specific regulatory catalyst, the impending July 1st Administrative Identity Framework.
Okay, what is that exactly?
According to the text, this new global surveillance and regulatory framework completely locks down transactional clarity across all banking and tax classes.
So it strips away the anonymity of the leverage.
Precisely. Historically, institutions could mask their insolvency through untracked backdoor debt rollovers or hidden prime brokerage agreements.
Like sweeping it under the rug.
Right. But this new framework makes that illegal and, more importantly, structurally impossible. The prime brokers are legally forced by automated compliance algorithms to liquidate their clients' assets to cover the margin calls.
Oh.
Yeah, it bypasses human sentiment or the desire for a bailout entirely. It is a reactive, mechanical necessity to avoid technical insolvency at the clearinghouse level.
So if you're listening to this and wondering how global monetary authorities could possibly let a regulatory framework trigger a catastrophic global meltdown, the author takes a very deliberate, darker turn.
Yeah, they really do.
They shift from the mechanics of the market to the motive behind the crash, detailing something they call matrix levers.
Right. The author argues this liquidity squeeze is not a tragic accident and it's not a regulatory miscalculation. They claim it is a highly calculated phase of late-stage fiat triage.
Late-stage fiat triage.
Yeah. The theory posits that global monetary authorities know the debt supercycle has reached its mathematical limit.
So rather than fighting the collapse, they are engineering a controlled demolition.
Exactly.
By allowing the free Japanese yen oxygen supply to vanish and using the July 1st identity framework to force algorithmic compliance, they intentionally induce an artificial domestic cash scarcity.
Right, and the text outlines the ultimate utility of this crisis. A forced automated liquidation deflates massive paper asset bubbles and completely wipes out middle-tier institutional investors and the retail trading crowd.
Basically everyone but the absolute top.
Yeah, but more importantly, the extreme volatility and panic mask the ongoing permanent destruction of fiat purchasing power.
I see. So the public is so distracted by their stock portfolios dropping 50% in a week that they don't even realize the fundamental value of their underlying currency has been permanently altered.
Exactly. And while the middle class is wiped out by margin calls, ultimate sovereign entities step in to consolidate real-world, productive physical infrastructure at historically suppressed valuations. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, that is the core architecture of the conspiracy theory the author presents. But again, to do an impartiality check here, we are just analyzing the architecture of the author's argument.
Right, we are not validating the existence of a malicious global matrix.
No, absolutely not.
But it brings us back to our user and their notebook LM automation protocol. When faced with a text that outlines a deliberate, inescapable wealth transfer engineered by an omnipotent financial matrix, the natural human reaction is panic.
Yeah, of course.
You want to fight it, or outsmart it, or frantically reallocate your 401k.
Yet the user explicitly instructed their AI tool to generate the analysis with zero energy spent on their part, entirely so they could disengage.
Exactly. They achieved sovereign detachment. They didn't try to trade the collapse. They asked for the bottom line, shut their laptop, and went to Thailand.
Which is it's hilarious, but also kind of brilliant.
And what's brilliant is that this user's digital detachment perfectly mirrors the actual physical survival strategy the author outlines in the final pages of the manifesto.
Right, the sniper closing protocol.
Right. The first directive of this protocol is absolute zero leverage. It demands total withdrawal from the speculative paper theater.
Meaning no debt-dependent securities, no over-leveraged tech indices, no pre-sale real estate, nothing.
The author insists you must extract all fiat surpluses out of the commercial banking system. You don't just move your money to a safer bank, you exit the banking ledger entirely.
Right.
And they are wildly specific about what you convert that fiat into. They call it the physical gold standard. But they aren't talking about gold ETFs or mining stocks.
No, they direct the reader to convert their capital strictly into physical, small denomination, 9999 pure gold rings.
Gold rings.
Yeah. And to hide them in private, unnetworked, unindexed security vaults.
Wait, if you're wondering why small gold rings instead of standard bullion bars, the author's logic is rooted entirely in surviving a grid-down financial freeze.
Right, because physical gold requires no foreign direct investment to maintain its value. It doesn't rely on a central bank stabilization program. But more importantly, by keeping it in small denominations like rings, it remains highly liquid and easily tradable in a worst-case localized scenario. You can't easily chop up a gold bar to buy groceries,
Yeah, that makes sense. And the emphasis on unnetworked, unindexed vaults addresses the counterparty risk.
Exactly.
Because if the July 1st Administrative Identity Framework maps every digital transaction and centralizes control, well, any asset on a digital ledger can be frozen or seized with a keystroke.
But an unnetworked physical vault operates completely outside that digital surveillance matrix.
Our author calls this posture ghost mode. You sit out the projected 2027 to 2029 liquidation window entirely decoupled from the system. You hold immutable, dense matter.
Right. You don't panic sell, you don't look for the bottom of the stock market, you simply wait.
You wait for the margin call cascade to completely exhaust itself. And once the paper theater has burned to the ground and asset valuations reflect physical reality rather than artificial leverage, you use that preserved purchasing power to buy real-world infrastructure assets at court-mandated liquidation pennies on the dollar.
It is an incredibly intense, warlike approach to capital preservation.
It really is. But when you place it next to our user's automation protocol, it just clicks into place.
Right.
The user didn't just read about ghost mode, they embodied it.
Yeah. They use modern automation to bypass the psychological warfare of the text, secured their sovereign status, and literally headed to the beach.
They let the machine worry about the machine.
It is the ultimate expression of the author's philosophy.
Seriously. So, we have covered a massive intellectual landscape today. We started by looking at the paralyzed, hyperinflated economy of Japan, driven by their reliance on energy imports and a debased currency.
Right.
We mapped out how that pain fuels the slow-moving CASA JPY gear, which in turn spins the hyper-leveraged flywheel of the yen carry trade. We watched that system shatter as domestic inflation forced capital rotation, triggering a lethal, mathematically automated margin call cascade. And we ended up in an unnetworked, offline security vault full of pure gold rings, waiting out a controlled demolition.
It's quite a journey. And, even if you completely dismiss the author's timeline or their belief in a malicious sovereign conspiracy, this deep dive provides a highly necessary mental model for understanding systemic risk for all of us.
Absolutely.
It forces us to recognize that free money in one part of the world, like zero interest rates in Tokyo, never exists in a vacuum. It is the invisible glass foundation holding up the skyscrapers in New York and the tech valuations in Silicon Valley. It trains you to look past the local weather and see the global climate.
Which leaves us with one final provocative thought for you to mull over as you go about your week. You spend endless hours analyzing the artificial intelligence boom driving the market right now.
Oh, constantly.
We attribute the staggering tech valuations to leaps in computing power, the brilliance of algorithms, and massive data center infrastructure. But if this manifesto is right about the hidden architecture of global liquidity, if that massive AI tech boom is actually heavily reliant on a constant, uninterrupted flow of zero-cost Japanese yen, could the next massive tech industry crash be caused not by a failure of artificial intelligence, but simply by a change in the price of money in Tokyo?
It makes you wonder how much of the innovation we are celebrating is actually just an elaborate measurement of hidden leverage.
Right. Keep an eye on those interest rates in Japan the next time you see a tech stock hit an all-time high. Thank you for joining us on this intense architectural breakdown today. Keep questioning the foundations beneath you, stay curious, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.